SalesCrunch. Learn more, earn more.
Questions?
What about retention?
Of customer or
yeah,
salespeople?
of customers and potentially, what's your approach when someone cancels their subscription?
Yeah, I mean, if you any scholars of the SaaS model, we're a SaaS model, which is software as a service. It's a big trend in software these days. Instead of spending $1 million on licensing fees and buying the product up front, you basically spend a monthly fee or an annual fee. And the key to all those models is retention. If you have a retention rate of 2% a month versus, or a cancellation rate of 2% a month versus 8% a month, I mean, the models are completely different. So a couple of things. We do actually have a team that focuses specifically on retention, and that comes in twofolds. One, helping people be more successful by really going into our customer base and trying to identify opportunities where we've rolled out new features and we want to make them aware of it, or they're not taking advantage of certain features that could make them super successful. And also on the other side of the fence where they're looking to cancel, and we'll want to dig into that and find out why and see if we can't do anything to help them out more to potentially reverse their decision. We actually have an internal concept called CHI, which is customer happiness points of like how are people using our software, are they using certain applications, how often do they log in, how much lead lift have they had, how much visitor lift have they had, how many users do they have, like 100 different factors, and it predicts how likely you are to churn in a given month. So we can allocate our customer team's time accordingly and also measure their success based on how high their CHI customers are going. The big driver ends up being pre-sale. So one of the interesting things we did like 3 years ago was we looked at the cancellation rate by salesperson, and we looked at the cancellation rate by customer rep. So customer reps are people who deal with customers after they sign up. And the cancellation by customer rep was it wasn't very different. Like the best one, at the time churn was higher, maybe like 3-4%. It was troubling. So it might have been like 3.5%. And the worst one was like 3.7%. They were very close. But for the salespeople, it was really different, like 7% versus 0.5%. So that the data was speaking to us. Wow, whether or not someone's successful with us really comes down to how they were sold. Like, were they a good fit to begin with? Were expectations set properly, et cetera, et cetera. So we immediately changed the comp plan. So compensation plans drive behavior amazingly well. And our churn rate got cut in 60-70% months after changing the compensation plan. We started paying the reps based on their cancellation rate. So those that had a really low cancellation rate, we paid them twice as much for every customer they brought in than those who had high cancellation rates. Because we were essentially saying, historically, you bring on really valuable customers, we will pay you more. Or historically, you don't bring on valuable customers, we're not going to pay you a lot. So all the people that are at the bottom were working really hard to figure out what they were doing wrong, what are the best people doing to get their churn rate down. So a bunch of different.
Did you also look at recurring commission for sales?
Do we pay recurring commission?
Yeah.
No, and there's a lot of different tactics on that. Commissions is like a great topic to get into. It's very complicated. We try to pay as much of it up front as possible. If people do, one of the most recent changes we made was at first we paid just on acquisition. You sign up a customer, you get $500, something like that. And that was great for the stage we were at early. It was all about just getting lots of customers. Great. 2 years later, we had that churn issue. Then we started basing it on the churn. And that fixed the churn right away. And then after a couple of years of that, we felt the salespeople were almost becoming too gun shy on bringing on customers. And we changed it recently to aligning it with how far in advance they pay for HubSpot. So if they pay a year in advance, we pay everything up front. If you pay 6 months in advance, we pay you 75% up front, you get the other part at the 6-month anniversary. If they pay monthly, you get half of it now, 25% at 6 months, 25% at 12 months. Because that payment plan was the thing that was very correlated with customer success and 100% control in the control of the sales rep, right? So we've changed the comp plans. I've seen models like in, I think insurance maybe. It's pretty common that they pay you just an annuity, like whatever you bring in every month, they just keep paying you a percentage. And what happens is you get the lazy man approach of, they've been with you 3 years, they can take the whole month off and make a lot of money because they have so they have no reason to go hunt. And they can't really get away from it because it's an industry norm. But I've seen creative elements of that, like, yeah, you build up a big annuity, but you only get it if you hit a quota that month. That's huge. It's like, wow, there's a lot of money in the line, you've got to hit your goal. So there's a lot of different variables you can use. Those are tactics.
And then you end up, the flip side of it is you end up getting really good salespeople who end up being really good customer service people because what we're worried about is keeping their book of business rather than bringing in new. Yeah, so you hand it off and to the customer service team who gets paid on keeping the customer, which is a lot better.
So the title of this course is How to Build a Social Selling Machine, and we're talking about management, but beyond management, what are your thoughts on strategy? How do we leverage all these outlets that we have in terms of Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, to ensure that we are building a social selling machine?
Okay. So it's really, it's gone to a world of content generation, quality content generation. And it's a big opportunity for many businesses because if you've looked at like the newspaper business lately and being a journalist, it's a hard life. But those people, I think, are the key to successful sales and marketing at most companies. So the best thing that you could do is think about your marketing as like publishers and journalists and people who are writing about all the questions that your potential customers have or your potential prospects have, and just get those out. Like, usually in the form of a blog is actually the easiest way to do that. And then complement that time, blogging, with reading and participating. So don't just write, but also keep up to speed with everything else that's going on in other blogs that are related to your industry. And participate by commenting on other blogs, or participating in LinkedIn groups, or joining and participating in various Facebook groups. And that combination of contributing content in a blog on a weekly basis or a couple times a week, and participating hopefully on a daily basis or a couple times a day, creates a very powerful social sales and marketing approach, because all that participation you're doing that in communities and blogs where your potential prospects are hanging out. So that those comments you're making, those discussions you're having, is gaining visibility of you to those potential prospects. People are linking to you. And if you've studied search, the way that you get ranked really high in Google when someone does a search for your industry is if lots of people are linking to you. So you get that added benefit of not only are people finding you in social media, but they're also linking to you, and that drives up your search rankings. So make sure that you have a major part of your sales and marketing strategy is continual content generation and participation in communities where your prospects are hanging out.
I think to add a little bit of that too is when you think about that from a social selling perspective, it's in a sense untethering your salespeople to create connections beyond sort of what your corporate policy says you should do. Because in a lot of respects, your salespeople participating in those environments can really yield a lot of authority for them and can draw business into them as they start participating in these different environments. The real issue is hiring people that are responsible and that can be effective in those environments and teaching them the right ways in which to engage so that they're not being obnoxious about what they're selling but are adding to the discussion. Because if you have all these individuals that have a vested interest in the development of your company and they're engaging in these environments in a way that is moving the organization forward, what you've really done is created this distributed communications mechanism for your message that ends up drawing a lot of opportunity in. And the more, because our salespeople do it all the time. They're connecting through Twitter with their potential prospects. They're looking at them on LinkedIn. They're connecting with them on LinkedIn. We have some people that they might do an inbound marketing assessment. They're now connected with LinkedIn. That person then shoots 3 or 4 referrals to them over the next 3 months. and leveraging these environments to create that sort of referral engine from a sales perspective is extremely powerful. And really figuring out how to connect those pieces to create that referral opportunity can be phenomenal revenue generating.
And the other side, I mean, we try to create a platform, there's no excuse anymore not to know what's going on about someone you're talking to, because you can find anything, something about anybody somewhere online, right? And so tools like HubSpot, which are percolating up as much information, going out, searching the web, bringing it all to you within the platform, like here's a bunch of stuff that you can talk about so that you can say stuff that's specific to them. Or, you know, Crunch Connect, where we're trying to bring the social profile right into the meeting screen so you don't have to go to a separate application and look at who you may know in common. Maybe your sister went to the school that they went to, or you know somebody else within their company. The whole point being you can find 6 degrees of separation really quickly and make it personal and bring their defensive wall down so that it's about them and somebody they know. And I don't answer the phone now ever, right? Unless the person's in my phone book or I recognize the number. And every single time I answer it because I think it's someone from an area code that might be calling me, it's like a bad choice, right? But and I have like 1,200 LinkedIn connections now, and I don't even know like who a third of them are because I'll pretty much link to anybody. But if someone in LinkedIn introduces me to somebody else, I'll take it, I'll answer it, I'll respond to it because I feel compelled. The more I don't know them, the more I feel like, oh crap, I should do this because it comes back to you. So there's so many layers of social selling now, like cold calling's dead. It's over, right? And you have these more inbound flows, or there's some way you can make a personal connection even if it is a cold call. Changes the dynamic completely.
The other thing too, even if you go back just 5-6 years ago, companies still needed the salesperson to really educate them on what the product was, what the opportunity would be to connect with that organization. If somebody was going to buy a capital good or something like that, they'd bring in 3 or 4 different vendors to present to them. Or they're buying a new software solution. They're going to bring in the vendors to present to them, see their wares. They don't need us anymore. They can figure everything out before they're ready to go. So they really just need us to execute the transaction. So it's really going to come down to who's adding extra value in that relationship to make that transaction valuable. Because in a lot of respects, the sale isn't just when the paper is signed and the credit card's given or the PO is given. It's everything that happens after the sale and the assurance that I'm going to get what I paid for and that it's going to be the type of experience that I expect and I'm going to get the value that I expected to get. So the more a salesperson is able to create proper expectations and align that all with the things that they've already learned about the product, the more successful they're going to be. In a lot of respects, using these social engagements allow you to be even more connected to provide that extra value.
SalesCrunch. Learn more, earn more.